outside? Yeah? You want outside? Don't grab my foot. You're playing too much, man. You're playing too rough. You're getting big. You gotta get limits. What's up, Papa? You gotta know your limits. I had to have a moment with Alexander, y'all. He was playing with one of my my Reebok boots. They're pretty expensive. It don't matter. And then he wanted to start fighting this. He's not scratching no skin and drawing no blood like he did a year ago. So let's play. It's all play. So let's get into some reading. All right. I was a little too late, but had a notice in the package. Went there, was no package. I know it's a 3-day weekend, and they're probably still putting stuff up. So they probably put up at the 4 or 5 o'clock. So I'll just check it tomorrow. But I might have a package coming out here too, so I don't know. It didn't say where. And I didn't check the tracking. I get tired of doing that. You know, when you check the tracking, it's like when it tells you, is it you? And you got the little box, and it says, "Tell me where the bus, the bridge, the trees." That's farther. That's encrypted. That's being nosy. And you can't, I was trying to find a way around it. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother. I don't even care. Get here when you get here. Some stuff I ordered a while ago, people. Y'all know as much as I do. For those who've ordered stuff online, everything is crazy. It's not in the 3 days it used to be, okay? It's just not. And you know, besides getting trickles of books when they all come in a big box, it is what it is. All right, so let's get into the Republic. Let's turn it down a little more. So how's everybody doing? I didn't put up greetings. I'm going to continue to put up greetings in every different language. I know some people are probably upset the way I talk or whatever. It's not personal. It is personal. Because we need to be able to greet each other on Earth. If you want to use the word humans, we need to greet each other as we once did, once upon a time, as the human relations, our relatives. I'd prefer to say as man and woman on Earth. I know it's kind of hard when you've been conditioned and made to believe a whole lot of stuff. And for the person that asked me when I'm going to read more books about America, well, I'm reading some now. Everything that I'm reading is steeped in this land, whether it be fact or fiction, historically on this soil. I'm seeing a lot of posts go up, and a lot of people commenting on certain posts about old world buildings that were all of a sudden mysteriously destroyed around 1850, 60, 70. You know, during Civil War was major. I showed people in North Carolina bridges that were Tartarian, old, and they looked at all these big bricks that were covered with moss and everything. I said, look at it, sandstone, marble, and brick. Most of the marble they got rid of, but you can still see some. And I'm like, are you aware this was a grand building, a castle probably? Damn, Red, I never noticed that. Look over here. And I would show him where the lake is. I says, you know, this used to run up to this height. And I show him this bridge. And I'm not going to name the 5 that I showed them in North Carolina. I used to go through all my ancestors' land in Louisiana too. And I says, look at this. You know what this is? What is that? And we're up on top of this bridge. And I'm pointing at the certain point where there's an overflow. I said, that's where the water used to come up. It says, well, all that right there, it hasn't been like that almost 800 years. Do you know why? There's a dam. And so here they are on the phone. Dude, I'm like, yeah, that's a newly built dam. Now, what you should pay attention to are the lakes encompassing those dams. Now, any y'all scuba divers, why don't y'all go and scuba dive some of those lakes to the bottom? If you get to the bottom. I never said nothing else after that. Let me see if this light will work. It makes me purple and pink, like I'm having DDTs or something, pink elephants and stuff. But here we go. So, chapter 10. All right, let's go ahead and have it's highlighted. All right. Let me make sure we're beyond that. Yeah. And I didn't highlight it because war at chapter 10. Whew, okay, let's get it in. Iron Republic. Cross my legs. I do not know how these men like Snoop and Will Smith and them cross their legs like a woman. I'll be smashing my scrotum. I cannot cross my leg over there. I don't know how they doing it. If somebody go they tall. Yeah, if you don't know shit. I mean, I know I'm kind of big, but I'm not that big. I'll be sitting there sometimes trying to cross my leg over. Oh, heck no, man. I just squeezed it. One of them. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how they do it. Something ain't right with them. Something is not right with them. Bro, any of y'all cross your legs like that? You know when you go like that? No, bro, mine's is figure four. I look, I get you in between there though, you through. But all in here, I was about to do my Uncle Ruckus voice, but I'm a hold back. I'm a hold off. Now I said, why Jesus? Now let's get into reading. Let me stop playing. My apologies. Chapter 10. For months, my beautiful wife had been fading like a flower, even on shipboard and amid the excitement of the wildest storm. She seemed listless and totally indifferent to her surroundings. Now, the boding sadness that began to come upon her after the terrible accident that resulted in the death of Professor Hallam never left her. And while she sometimes simulated vivacity, her gaiety pained rather than pleased me. For my love penetrated her sweet little deception, and I knew that it was for my sake that she pretended what she did not feel. I had fondly hoped, and so had her parents, that when she was out of the country and away from the scenes that reminded her of her past, her old buoyancy of spirits would return. Indeed, but for this and that dreadful melancholy that grew upon her day after day, we would never have yielded to her desire to undertake the desperate journey to America. But it was not so, and the bitterness of my disappointment amounted to anguish. Every morning on board the vessel, as on shore, she would awake at the exact moment when the wonderful matins of Professor Hallam had been wont to roll out from the Tower of Music and listen wide-eyed and with every faculty trained to the utmost tension of alertness, listening. And as I lay beside her sometimes and held her hand, feigning sleep, I could feel the nervous tremor that agitated her, while her pulse fluttered with the intensity of the nervous strain, that is. My God, it was terrible that my sweet wife, the most beautiful and gracious woman I ever knew, and the only one I ever loved, should suffer like that. And at sunset, she would listen for the nocturne with the same fever of excitement. Thus, as long as we were in latitudes where day and night alternated, and when we reached the regions of the pole where there were no sun rising nor settings, instead of becoming better, she grew worse. This intense attitude became habitual, and I employed I could devise to interest her and fix her attention on objects about us, and she, with the sweetest grace, tried to be interested. But even as I held her hand and talked to her with all the animation I could effect, looking into the fathomless depths of her glorious eyes, I would lose her. And with the most intense concentration of mind, she would follow me and sense what I was saying for a few minutes, and then she listened, indeed, but not to me. And oh, she tried so hard. One evening we stood by the rail on the quarterdeck, looking out over the hissing brine at the sun which hung red upon the horizon. It seemed as if it were just ready to sink out of sight, though really it had been but slightly above the horizon. For many days, as I stood with one arm around her and holding her hand, her gaze was fixed on the red ball of fire that touched the ocean's rim and which was reflected in her eyes like the flashes in an opal. I drew her to me and spoke ardently of what I hoped to accomplish when we reached my own country, even putting my face against hers as I spoke. But I do not think she heard me. Like one hypnotized, she seemed totally oblivious of her surroundings, and I saw with a pang of anguish that she was listening for the strains of that glorious nocturne, the music, the melody, such as was never heard except from the Tower of Music, and such as was never played by any hand save that of the dead master. And then I believe my heart broke. Then a pain struck through my breast that has never ceased from that hour to this, waking or sleeping. Dropping her hand, I fell forward with a groan, and catching the rail, rested my head upon it. Starting as if she had been struck, my darling came back to herself, and with a cry fell down at my feet, and with a torrent of broken words and sobs, begged me to forgive her. "Oh, my love," she cried. The tears ran down her beautiful upturned face. "My heart is breaking for you, but I cannot help it. Indeed, I cannot. Oh, when I cannot see you or hear you, my heart aches for you with never ceasing misery. I have struggled and I have prayed, but God will not help me. And I have feared that you might not understand, that you might think, oh, what shall I say? That you might not think that I love you, and you only with all my heart. Oh, my husband, pity me, and forgive your poor, miserable, unfortunate wife. Oh, oh, oh." And she fell forward with her face against my knees, sobbing and quivering with the violence of her emotion. Lifting her gently in my arms while my heart was bursting, I carried her down into the cabin and laid her on her bed. And with her arms still about my neck, as when they held me back from a fearful death that summer afternoon, I fell on my knees by the bedside and with my face against hers, wept with her. And in the dim twilight of the cabin, while the sun hung red upon the rim of the sea, and the billows rustled along the vessel's side with a sad murmur, like the sighing of an autumn wind, she told me that Professor Hallam's music had always impressed her in a way she could not understand. That whenever she heard his wonderful matins and nocturnes, she seemed to lose herself and was borne away on the billows of harmonious sound. She told me that she could even divine the music in advance of the playing and knew each bar before she heard it as well, as if she had composed it herself. Stranger than all, she said. She always knew by some mysterious influence the very moment the music was going to begin. She knew by that influence, that mysterious something, that the master was playing now, was playing all the time, and while she could not hear the music, by the strange power which dominated her, she felt and knew what unutterable strains were being rendered in heaven or somewhere. She told me as she lay there with her soft arms about my neck and her dear face touching mine, that if she had the skill to set it down fast enough, she could write the grand music that was being rendered day and night and day after day without cessation. At first, she said she only felt it evenings and mornings, and then more and more until finally, when we passed into the zone where there was no alternation of day and night, she felt that he was playing all the time. She could not hear it, but she felt it, felt its beauty, and could not escape its power. She had kept this from me till now. Seeing my suffering, she could no longer conceal it, but told me all, that I might not doubt her love, but pity and forgive her the pain she caused me. If she had done this at first, the great physicians of Aronia might have cured her of the malady. For such it must have been, and I entered her to let me take her back. Then, but she would not consent. "Why, it has stopped now," she cried, holding my face between her hands and looking up at me with the love light in her eyes. "It stopped short off when you fell against the rail, and I know he would never play again, even to the angels, if he knew it caused me sorrow." And as I gazed into her face and saw the old look in her eyes, I thanked God and prayed that the spell might be broken and that she might never again fall under the power of the dead man's music again. I knew not that the end was so near, and when it came, it was as if God had struck me with a thunderbolt out of a clear sky. For a week she had not come on deck and had scarcely been on her feet during that time. The hallucination that passed her had not recurred since the day she told me all, and I was sure that in some inexplicable way, her violent emotions at that time had been the means of breaking the spell. But the improvement I had looked for from that did not come, and she grew weaker, physically, day by day, or rather from hour to hour, as there was no alternation of day and night. We had sighted Barrington Strait, and was laying off and on, keeping the towering ice wall in sight, and waiting for a wind that would drive us through the current that runs like a mill race through the channel. For hours, my beautiful wife, now so frail and white as to seem almost ethereal, had reclined in the lounge in the cabin with her eyes half closed, and such an expression of heavenly peace upon her face that I felt awed as though in oh my goodness, DJ, where you at, man? It's too many notifications. I felt awed as though in the presence of an angel. I was sitting at table trying to fix my mind upon a chart that I was making of the ice coast and entrance to the strait. That's my brother, y'all. I'm just getting notifications. And with a slight cry, she clasped her hands and opened wide her eyes with that look of listening expectancy I knew so well. Springing to her side with a half-uttered imprecation, I kneeled beside her and caught her clasped hands in mine. "Listen," she whispered excitedly. "He is going to play. I feel it. Oh, now he is playing. It is the glorious nocturne he played that evening when we were by the river. Hark! I can hear it. Oh, so grand." Her eyes closed as she moved her head forward and from side to side, some moments keeping time. "Edward, my husband, where are you?" "I am here, darling," I cried passionately, pressing her hands and imprinting a kiss on her partly open lips. "Then I am content." And withdrawing one of her hands from mine, she put an arm around my neck. I started to speak caressingly, and to her, when she stopped me with a quick hush. "I am to sing. He is playing the prelude. Now he is motioning me to begin now." And inhaling a deep breath, she began to sing the great peace hymn of the Republic. Of old wind down the starlight. No, I'm not gonna sing it. Anyway, of old wind down the starlit sky, the angel voices swelled and ran. This was the burden of their cry: peace, peace on earth, goodwill to all men. In the refrain, peace, peace on all the earth, peace, peace among all men, peace. Her voice swelled grandly and floated out over the black ocean. She drew my face down upon her bosom, and the triumphant notes of this magnificent hymn, the masterpiece of Professor Hallam, rose and fell, my heart seemed to melt within me. My tears gushed forth, and I felt as if my spirit was outborne on the wings of song, far above the sphere of earthly hope and passion, beyond the veil of darkness, into a great luminous ethereal space that throbbed with the rhythmic measures of the music of the spheres. And as I floated upward on the waves of unutterable melody, where there was no horizon and no sky, an angel held me by the hand and about the neck, and that angel I felt had been my wife. I was aroused by a touch on the shoulder, and looking up, I saw the kind face of Captain Brent bending over me. "Where am I asked in a dazed way. "You are in the hand of Almighty God," replied the captain solemnly, "who doeth all things well." I staggered to my feet and gazed about me, and then looking down saw the earthly image of my wife, still and white as a reclining statue of marble. Her eyes were closed as though in slumber, and her lips were parted with a smile. And I realized that God had struck me the final blow. With a calmness I could not understand, I motioned him out of the cabin and bowed myself in the presence of my dead. When I went on deck, again the sun had disappeared below the horizon, and fingers of golden fire pointed from the rim of the black ocean to the zenith that was flushed with rosy light. But why should I linger with these sorrowful details? I was not stirred by any emotion and felt nothing except that dull pain in my heart, which has never left me. And Captain Brent was like a father, and the boys pressed my hand with a silent symphony that expressed far more than words. I was not moved by any great emotion, except once when after Captain Brent had read the solemn service for those who are buried in the sea, and motioned to the mate to take me into his cabin while they committed my idol to the deep. Then for a time I was crazed. I had nearly gone mad, and I believed I would have killed every man aboard the ship before I would have suffered them to cast that love form into the cold, hissing waters of the Black Sea. The weather was favorable, and as the billows rolled over, and far up on the shelving ledge of the great berg, we had only to ride in on the crest of a wave, and drawing the boat up, make it fast on the ice. It was a little mountain of ice and snow tapering up from the water line. It terminated into glittering pinnacles, like crystal spires of a cathedral of glass. Excuse me. Between the two, a niche or grotto partly filled with snow, and up to this we climbed by throwing ropes over the jutting crags and lesser pinnacles that projected from the sloping sides above the wash of the sea waves. And so we toiled up from terrace to terrace and from pinnacle to pinnacle until we reached the grot between the spires, and there we placed the couch with the earthly form of my beautiful wife and banked the snow about. Below, the Black Sea sobbed and moaned about the base of the great iceberg, and above, the wind sang among the crevices and pinnacles of the resonant ice like 100 alien harps, swelling in fitful gusts until the triumphant chords rang out like strains from the tower of music. And there we left her, a marble queen upon a crystal throne, alone with God and the angels' throne. I begged for the love of heaven to be left there with her, but cruel in their kindness they dragged me away to the ship. And then there burst upon us a scene of unearthly splendor. The aurora australis sprang up around us, and under it the Black Sea turned to gold, frosted here and there with the foaming crest of billows. Every rope and spar of the ship stood out white in the spectral light, and the great icebergs in their whiteness and stillness and silence looked like ghosts preternaturally enlarged. And the twin spires of the crystal mausoleum gleamed like sapphires, and then the goat and the grot between, magnified by the wondrous light and irradiated by its ineffable glory, was revealed the form of my lost wife. And while the amber and golden light played around the towering berg, radiating from it like a halo, fluttering like banners and angel wings above it, we drew away until it became a mere flashing gem upon the sea of gold. God damn. And this is, I guess, what it supposedly looks like. Now, the last was for dramatics, because the Iron Republic, she did not die. Excellent read. The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Walls, Worlds Beyond Antarctica, A Nos Confundum, by Claudio Nocelli. Now, next, I want you to know what this is. This is long after this. Terra Infinita, Extraterrestrial Worlds and the Civilizations, a story told by the woman who was born in the lands behind the ice walls. This will ring home. Okay, let's get into this bad boy. The War Behind, Chapter 4, The War Behind the Walls. When we were all in silence waiting for the words of the captain, who was going to tell us something that seemed to be unique, a colossal-sized craft loomed and seemed to be coming straight at us. One of the boys went up to see what he could spot and shouted as he descended in a violent manner, "They are coming towards us! It is something gigantic!" We all panicked, but Butler ordered to remain calm. Although he remained calm, he seemed a bit nervous compared to what we had experienced before. This made me, my apologies. This made me more uneasy, and we would be coming towards us in this giant craft. They is what it should say. I didn't correct it. You heard me read this before. I refuse to. I like to see it for what it is. As it got closer, we did not change the north course. It had a reddish color, and as it got closer, we could see that it was more and more immense. I will not deny that I feared for my life and that of the team. Okay, I could not believe that we had just left the walls of ice behind. Something was going to prevent us from continuing to investigate this unknown ocean, and I also thought that the only ones who had come so far in these areas. We did not know exactly the depth, but the ocean still looked dark. A deafening sound enveloped us as we could hardly stand it. It was a screeching sound like some kind of horn. Then a voice with a perfect English accent came before us, saying the following: "Dear visitors from the walled lands, some of our men will come down and approach your boat. We will do you no harm. Please remain calm." This message sounded even more frightening. Inside me, I thought they might attack us, but it's not like we could escape from there either. This ship was gigantic and looked like something out of a fictional tale from a far future. Butler reassured us by acknowledging that he was aware that something like this could happen. To stay calm and welcome this new visitor in a kind way. I just got to eating, people. Bear with me. Three men were making their way to our ship, and this was the first time we had ever had a visitor, and we were not even sailing in familiar waters, nor were any familiar people aboard. The men had white suits, and some emblems stood out on them. There was a flag flying on top of the ship, if we could call it that. Said flag was completely blue with a white circle in the center. A star. Memories. We helped the men up, and they greeted us kindly by shaking our hands. One of them introduced himself as the captain and asked us what we were doing sailing in this area across the wall. Butler spoke for us and informed him that we were sailing around the Antarctic. What the heck? Arctic Circle, and that a current had brought us to the other side, and that we had decided to sail through these areas to investigate it. It would be my impression at the time, but I had noticed a certain camaraderie between Butler and the officers. The same man turned to look at his other two companions, and they were amazed at such a feat. They commented among themselves that it had been a long time since they had seen something like this. Not the first. He apologized for the way they should have approached us, and also the way they had to approach, saying the following words. He explained to us the reason for this concern. "We are very sorry that your visit does not seem to be welcome. It really is, but it has been a long time since we have seen people crossing the walls. In fact, we did not know how they left them either. But it does not matter now. I will give you this map with directions on how to get to safe lands." This last sentence was not well taken by any of the group. We looked at each other with some fear, and I encouraged myself to ask them, "Safe lands, did you say? Are there then unsafe lands?" "Well, the lands where you come from are quite unsafe," replied the man standing behind. "Don't worry, you will get there fine sailing in this direction." It was a unique moment that to be able to understand the situation a little. I spoke again as the owner of the boat. "Excuse me, where do you come from?" I had millions of questions in my head. "From the ancestral public, sir." The man answered me in a bounded way, adding later, "Don't worry, I understand that you have many questions at this. I promise you that they will give you all the necessary information when they arrive to these lands that we indicate to you. We will inform you that they will arrive so you can receive them immediately." Now, the men withdrew quickly, looking in all directions as if searching for something. The strange visit left us with more questions than answers. Butler did not hesitate for a moment, and as a great leader, he woke up the group that was still fearful and somewhat hesitant. Now, the destination was clear now. We were heading to new lands called the Ancestral Republic. We sailed for quite a while following the course indicated by these men. and Butler indicated that it was important to follow this direction rigorously. When several of us from the team asked the captain about what he was going to tell us before the visit, he preferred not to continue with the subject, as if he had changed his mind outright, although he told us the following. After what happened, I think we all have to open our eyes. Fortunately, we ran into these people, and we can open our eyes. We ran into these people, and we can head safe to lands. I think we would not have had the same luck if it was another boat that visited us. Let's remember that there are people we left behind, very powerful people, who do not want us to be selling these waters or knowing all this. Let's wait to arrive as soon as possible to the Republic, and then they will understand more about the situation. It is something complex, but I am glad we have crossed the walls. The journey has just begun, comrades. It is time to understand that we are in a war zone, doing something unique. The last sentence left us speechless. We all asked in unison, "What do you mean in a war zone? War zone? What kind of war? What kind of war?" All the questions were directed to the captain, who answered them all by saying, "Comrades, pay attention, and let's get to these lands indicated. Everything will become clear as soon as we anchor." Now, when it says a war zone, it was different voices. "What kind of war? What kind of war, mate? What kind of war are you talking about?" And I didn't want to go a full ensemble. Now, the temperature had changed quite a bit as we moved away from the walls. In about 30 days, the area enveloped us with a temperate climate, a temperate meaning comfortable. As indicated, we would be close to these lands. Birds of various types began to be spotted, and vegetation on the waters that were now clearer. I had an inner feeling that we were making history, forgetting a little the captain's phrase, that we were in a war zone without knowing it. In that case, I would like to know who was the enemy. Next, chapter 5, the human reset. We'll get more into the war, people. Just be patient. I know all you people who have been programmed and conditioned for war and war only instead of astringent lifting and ascension. It will be very descriptive. And somebody asked, why is that not in the Iron Republic? It was called the Iron Republic for a purpose. All right, so next will be chapter 5, the human reset, which is pretty friggin' awesome. Isn't that right, Sniff? I need some more coconut water, guys. And that was a great reading. I need more. I want more. So who all came in? Rondo, what's going on, beloved? T. Hines, hey, beloved. Avi Gerard, Big Pontiac, what's up, beloveds? Snoo, baby girl. And Ancestral Republic is the Iron Republic. It's exactly. Absolutely inciting. Isn't it? It's invigorating. Oh, and the other book's done, so I can bring in the custodians with this read. Now, the Anunnaki and other reads, which I will come back and read. I am not doing no podcast tonight or nothing like that. I told you, I have a list of things I want to do podcasts on. I might do some in videos because I have a bunch of videos that are saved, and it would be good to draw upon them. So I will see, because y'all know I'm not too big on gimmicks. I just like to be able to tell a story. And this book I've read it several times. So, and I didn't make the corrections I said I would make when I last read it. I want to fumble with it. I love the mispunctuations and the misplacement of words. It's just so authentic. For those who like to read, you know what I'm speaking about. It's like crossword puzzles and chess. It gets the brain. And me focusing now more on the right hemisphere, it's like falling off a bike. It's wonderful. Okay? So, thank y'all for spending a little time and watching. I appreciate you. I wish more would just stay and hang in there. I know it's the East Coast. Most of y'all should be off work or going to. And the rest of you, I know, may have other things going on, family matters and stuff. And so, but I still appreciate you all. So we're gonna lock this down, and I'm gonna get some more coconut water with some lime and sit back and watch me an old cartoon. Oh, wonderful cartoon. And I'll tell y'all later what it is. It makes you think and shows that the authors and editors are not perfect. Exactly. Nobody is. We were created in perfection. The point is to become that perfection. Remember I told you about the movie Powder? An excellent infomercial, I will say, as far as the movies go. To me, it was an infomercial. Um, you just need to know. If you ever watch it, really pay attention to the veracity of the ignorance of people, and then see the beauty and the structure of that which we would consider an albino or leper, to which he was neither. He was born when he was meant to ascend. He was never meant to be physical. That's all I'm going to say. For those who see it, maybe you never thought about it that way. I watched Power over 120 times. I literally watched it 12 times in a 2-day period. Literally. Glued, mentally taking notes, dreaming, remembering stories, talking to people. I'm serious. So I appreciate you guys. Beloved sisters, my brothers, I'll see y'all in about 2 hours so we can get into the rest of Gods of Eden, Naki, and the Hathors. All right? Thank you. We got to come together. I know I beat people up. We got to separate the weak. It doesn't mean that they can't listen. We just have to. And if they run, there's nothing we can do about that. They'll come around. All right? Thank you. All right, stop watching me.